Welcome to Pro Billionaire, where we bring you the most incredible success stories from people who started with nothing but turned their lives around to become millionaires. If you're ready to be inspired, you're in the right place. On this channel, you'll discover stories of individuals who once had nothing, no money, no opportunities, and yet, they fought through the toughest challenges to build empires from scratch. These are real people, with real struggles and real triumphs, and their journeys will give you the motivation and lessons you need to grow in your own life and move closer to your own success. By watching these stories, you'll learn powerful insights on how to overcome obstacles, turn dreams into reality, and find the inner strength to achieve financial freedom. If you want to become the best version of yourself, grow, and possibly one day join the ranks of the billionaires, you're going to gain so much from each story. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button and tap the bell icon, so you never miss a moment of inspiration. Let's unlock your potential together. He slept under a broken bridge for months, cold nights wrapping around him like a shroud of failure. He had no home, no money, no friends, only the distant memory of who he used to be and the unbearable silence of rock bottom. His name was Marcus, and once he had dreams, now he just had survival. The city never cared to ask who he was or how he ended up like this. People passed by, never looking twice, as if his existence was invisible. He wasn't always like this. A few years ago, Marcus had a decent life. He worked at a small tech company, earning just enough to pay rent and feed himself. He wasn't rich, but he had potential. Then a corporate merger wiped out half the staff, and he was one of the unlucky ones, jobless with no family in the city. He tried everything to stay afloat: gig jobs, selling his possessions, sleeping on friends' couches, until those offers ran out and the eviction notice landed like a hammer on his door. What followed was a downward spiral: job interviews that went nowhere, meals skipped to save coins. Eventually he stopped trying, stopped hoping. The streets became his reality. He kept to himself, learned which soup kitchens gave the best meals and where it was safest to sleep. But even then, danger was a constant shadow. Once he was mugged for a pair of old shoes, another time chased out of a public park by security as if he were a criminal, not a human being. Then came the night that changed everything. It was raining hard and he had no shelter. His usual spot was taken, and the bridge where he often slept was half flooded, soaked to the bone. He stumbled into a 24-hour diner, hoping to stay warm just long enough before being thrown out. The manager eyed him suspiciously and told him to leave, but before he could move, a young woman at a corner booth called out, "Let him sit," she said quietly. "I'll cover whatever he orders." Her name was Eliza. She was a freelance graphic designer working on a tight deadline, and something about Marcus had caught her eye. He didn't ask for anything, he just looked defeated. She offered him a coffee and a sandwich, and he accepted, silently eating, slowly savoring every bite. They spoke briefly, not much, but enough for her to realize that Marcus had once been in tech, enough for her to scribble a phone number on a napkin and say, "Call this guy, he owes me a favor." Marcus didn't believe it would lead anywhere, but the next morning, with the napkin still in his pocket and rain still falling, he made the call. The man on the other end, named Leo, ran a tiny tech startup in desperate need of someone who could handle back-end systems. Marcus hesitated, explaining his situation, but Leo surprised him, saying, "Come and show me what you can do. We've all been down before." That first step was the hardest, walking into the office wearing donated clothes and carrying nothing but old knowledge and fragile hope. Leo sat him in front of a computer and gave him a small task, expecting little. Marcus finished it in under an hour and fixed 2 other bugs in the system without being asked. Leo stared at him and then smiled. "When can you start?" For the first time in a year, Marcus had a reason to get up each morning. He worked harder than anyone there, staying late, absorbing everything, relearning what he had forgotten, and updating himself on new technologies. He didn't talk much at first, but people began to notice the quiet guy who solved problems nobody else could. His confidence grew with each challenge. His posture changed, his eyes lit up. He was still sleeping at shelters, but his mind was building something far greater. He saved every dollar he could, eating cheap, walking everywhere, never complaining. When Leo offered him a full-time position, Marcus accepted with tears in his eyes. He never took a single day for granted. He kept showing up, kept over-delivering, until one day Leo pulled him aside and said, "I'm opening a second branch. I need someone to run it, someone I trust, someone like you." That night Marcus didn't sleep. He just sat in silence, realizing that the same hands once used to hold signs for spare change were now trusted to lead a team. His journey was far from over, but in that moment he knew he was no longer homeless in the eyes of the world. He was becoming someone again, and maybe, just maybe, his story was only beginning. Marcus embraced the role with everything he had. The office was small, barely enough space for the growing team, but it was a start. He had quickly moved from handling back-end operations to managing a small group of developers. Despite the limited resources, Marcus was relentless. His experience on the streets had taught him resilience, his time in the tech world had taught him strategy. In both, he had learned that survival wasn't just about brute strength, it was about being smart, adapting, and constantly pushing forward. The team started to notice his unwavering dedication, his willingness to sacrifice, and his relentless pursuit of perfection. Slowly but surely, the once overlooked tech startup began to grow. But it wasn't without its challenges. The startup world was unforgiving. Competitors were aggressive, and cash flow was a constant concern. The pressure weighed heavily on Marcus, but he kept it to himself, refusing to let his team see him falter. He could sense the hesitation in some of his co-workers, a lack of faith that maybe they weren't going to make it, that they weren't good enough. They needed a leader, not just someone to fill a seat. Marcus began taking risks, smart risks, investing time and resources into projects that others thought were too ambitious. He fought for bigger clients, negotiated better deals, and slowly started turning the tide. His ability to identify opportunities became his greatest strength. While other companies were bogged down by bureaucracy, Marcus was nimble. He moved faster, adapting quicker to the ever-changing market. He surrounded himself with a team of talented individuals, each bringing something unique to the table. It was no longer just about survival, it was about creating something lasting. As the company's reputation grew, so did Marcus's. People started talking about the tech entrepreneur who had come from nothing. The stories of his rise from homelessness became part of the narrative. He appeared in local news articles, on podcasts, and in tech meetups. Everyone wanted to know how someone could go from sleeping under bridges to managing a successful startup. But Marcus never sought the spotlight. He remained focused on his vision, pushing forward with his team, always reminding them that success was a collective effort. Eliza, the woman who had first given him that chance, was still by his side. She had seen the growth in him firsthand and became one of his most trusted advisors. They worked together late into the night, brainstorming ways to improve the company's reach and visibility. She was the creative mind, Marcus was the strategist. They balanced each other perfectly. In those quiet moments, when the office was empty, they would reflect on how far they had come. Eliza was the only one who knew the full extent of Marcus's journey, and she was amazed at the man he had become. One evening, Marcus stood in front of a packed conference room, ready to present the company's vision to a group of potential investors. His heart raced, not because he was afraid, but because he had worked so hard for this moment. A few years ago, he would have been sitting in the back, invisible. Now, he was leading the charge, presenting with confidence, answering questions with precision. The investors were impressed, not just with the numbers but with the man behind them. They saw the hunger in his eyes, the drive that came from years of struggle. The pitch went smoothly, and within a few days, the company secured a substantial investment. Marcus was now at the helm of something real, something powerful. He was no longer the struggling coder looking for a way out. He had found a way up, and the climb was far from over. He had a vision for the future, and nothing could stop him from realizing it. He took a moment to reflect on the long road that had led him here. He thought about the nights on the streets, the pain of losing everything, and the people who had doubted him. But most of all, he thought about how much he had learned from those experiences. He had learned that failure wasn't the end, it was just another part of the journey. That hunger, the kind that gnaws at your soul when you have nothing left, had become his greatest asset. It had fueled him, pushed him further than he ever thought possible. But even as the company grew, Marcus knew that this success didn't define him. It was just another chapter in his story, and he was determined to keep writing it. There were still battles to fight, dreams to pursue, and lives to change. He wasn't just building a company, he was building a legacy that would inspire others to keep going, no matter how hard life got. The small tech startup was now on its way to becoming a powerhouse in the industry, and Marcus was at the center of it all. But for him, the journey was never about the destination. It was about the lessons learned along the way, the people he met, and the chance to make a difference. He had gone from being invisible to being a force to be reckoned with. And in that moment, standing on the precipice of everything he had dreamed of, Marcus realized that the best was yet to come. As the years passed, Marcus's company transformed into a dominant player in the tech world. The startup that once barely survived had grown into a multinational enterprise with offices across the globe. Marcus had never allowed success to make him complacent. He kept pushing the boundaries, continually innovating, refining, and expanding. His focus wasn't just on the bottom line, but on how technology could improve lives, create opportunities, and challenge the status quo. His journey from homelessness to CEO had become the foundation for a new era of leadership in the industry, one where empathy and vision were as valued as profits. But it wasn't always easy. There were constant challenges that came with growth, new competitors, the pressure of maintaining innovation, and the responsibility of managing a large, diverse team. Marcus didn't shy away from these pressures. Instead, he embraced them, seeing them as the next hurdle to overcome. His leadership style was rooted in authenticity and resilience, qualities he had learned during his time on the streets. He treated his employees not as assets to be exploited but as partners in the journey, encouraging them to think big and to challenge themselves. He was a leader who listened, who saw potential in people even when they couldn't see it in themselves. As his company's influence grew, so did Marcus's public presence. He was invited to speak at major tech conferences, to advise governments on technology policy, and even to mentor young entrepreneurs who were struggling to find their way. His story was shared on stages worldwide, and people listened intently when he spoke. They saw in him not just the story of a man who overcame adversity, but the story of someone who had chosen to use his success to give back to the community. He had become a symbol of hope, showing that no matter where you came from, it was possible to build something extraordinary. Yet, despite the fame and accolades, Marcus remained grounded. He never forgot where he came from. His days of homelessness were never far from his mind, and he made it a point to give back in ways that truly mattered. He funded shelters for the homeless, supported job training programs, and worked with local organizations to provide educational resources for those in need. His own journey had taught him that success was meaningless unless it was shared. He wanted to be remembered not just as a tech entrepreneur but as someone who made a real difference in the lives of others. Through his philanthropic efforts, Marcus met individuals who had walked paths similar to his own. They had faced rejection, hardship, and despair, and many of them had given up on their dreams. Marcus took these people under his wing, offering them mentorship, guidance, and sometimes just a place to sleep for the night. He believed that success was never a solitary journey and that everyone deserved the chance to rise above their circumstances. Then came a moment that would change everything once again. Marcus was invited to a summit of some of the world's wealthiest and most influential business leaders. It was an opportunity to expand his network and to make connections that could take his company to new heights. But when he walked into the room, surrounded by billionaires in suits, he couldn't help but feel like an outsider. These people had never known struggle the way he had. Their challenges were different: tax laws, market trends, and board meetings, not the hunger, the cold, or the loneliness that Marcus had experienced. It was in that moment that Marcus realized something profound. He understood the weight of his journey more clearly than ever before. His life wasn't just about building a company or amassing wealth. It was about the impact he could have on the world. He had gone from being invisible to becoming a voice for the voiceless, a beacon of possibility for those who had been forgotten. He wasn't just part of the system anymore, he was reshaping it. With this newfound clarity, Marcus began to take his company in a new direction. He didn't just want to be a leader in the tech world, he wanted to transform the way businesses operated. He advocated for greater corporate responsibility, pushing for companies to invest in their communities and to prioritize sustainability. His voice began to echo beyond the boardrooms, and soon, more and more CEOs followed his lead, implementing ethical practices and focusing on long-term impact instead of short-term profits. As his influence expanded, Marcus never lost sight of his roots. He often took the time to visit the shelters where he had once slept, offering encouragement to those who were still struggling. He met with the homeless, listened to their stories, and shared his own. He didn't want them to see him as a distant success story but as someone who truly understood their pain. He often told them that he wasn't special, he was just someone who had refused to quit, who had refused to believe that his circumstances would define his future. And he made sure they knew that their stories were not over, that they, too, had the potential to rise. Marcus had gone from the man who once asked for change on the streets to the man who now changed the world. He had built more than a company, he had built a movement, a testament to the power of perseverance and the belief that every person, no matter where they started, had the capacity for greatness. His story wasn't just about tech or business, it was about hope, about never giving up, and about the incredible power of transformation. In the end, Marcus's journey wasn't just about becoming a CEO. It was about using his success to create a legacy that would last far longer than any company or product. It was about lifting others up and ensuring that the world saw them, just as he had once been seen. From homeless to CEO, Marcus had proven that the true measure of success wasn't in wealth or fame, but in the lives you touched and the difference you made.